All right. Well, thanks, Sensei. I'm going to kick us off. Welcome back, everybody, to Punch, Kick, Choke Chat. I hope you enjoyed your week off. I kind of did and didn't. I actually missed this. I really felt the lack of this last Thursday. But it was really nice. And I want to thank our first three guests, Sensei Suino, Sensei Legacy, and of course, Super Dan, for kicking this off so beautifully. And most especially, I'd like to thank the viewers. The fact that you're all tuning in, and we've got our numbers the same this week for Sensei Rice, who Sensei Dauphin is going to introduce in a sec. Super excited about this week and for this to have legs and some flow as we get into the nicer weather. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Shawn Benson, and I'm one of your three hosts. And I've been doing martial arts for about 28 years. I work in TV film, hence my hosting duties are sort of central to the show. And yeah, the best thing I can say is it's just a massive honor to be a part of this and to have created this with two of my senseis who I not only look up to, but call best friends. So on that note, I just want to introduce Sensei Nicholas Suino, who's our sword master, who's a judo master, who's the reason I ended up doing some grappling, and who's just one of my favorite people to talk to. How you doing this week, Sensei Suino?
Doing great, Shawn. It's great to see you as always. And I'm just really looking forward to this episode. Got new people coming in and new audience members and new personalities. So my job tonight, besides catching the ball that you threw, is to introduce Sensei Randy Dauphin, who, you know, I struggle because we do this over and over again, and I was trying to think of something new. But like a good movie, sometimes you just want to watch the movie you know you like rather than take a chance. So what I'm going to say about Sensei Dauphin is that he participated in one of the coolest evolutions that I think happens in the martial arts world, which is somebody starts out as a training partner, a student, or a sensei, and over the long run becomes a friend. That is one of the coolest evolutions that I think takes place in our environment. And the thing that Randy and I gel on particularly well is our commitment and our belief in unlimited potential, that if we can figure out the path and do the work, we can do almost anything in the world, especially when it comes to physical fitness, martial arts, business, or just human potential in general. So with that, I hand it off because I know we got a lot of important things to talk about tonight. Randy, I can't wait to hear from you, and rock and roll.
Yeah, so I just want to say thanks to both of you. This is kind of a half-cocked, harebrained idea, and then I bounced it off of Sensei Benson and Sensei Suino, and we pulled Robert in, you'd never see him because he's too good looking, but we pulled him in, and it got some legs, and then lo and behold, some really exciting people wanted to come on here and just chat with us and have this vibe. And for me, it was, I want the vibe to be, you know, just that, casual. I learned so much over the years from just sitting in the room when Sensei Legacy was talking to Sensei Suino and I wasn't talking, and I was just there listening as they were chatting. And I can't think of anybody that I want to do that with more than Adette. It's hard for me to call Kyoshi Rice formally because we're just such good friends, and that's not really what our relationship has been, but I'll do my best. I met Kyoshi Rice, I think it was in around 2005 in Niagara Falls. There was an event happening there. I was there competing. That's also the same place, same evening that I met her teacher, Hanshi Carlos Montalvo. That's the same night that I met our mutual friend, Kyoshi James Fries. And I am so glad that the universe brought me there to that tournament to fight and participate there. You know, there's so much I could say about Adette. So I wrote down just the night when I came in, I wrote down a whole bunch of words that I think describe her, right? So these are just words. So capable, an achiever, she's humble, she's dependable, she's deadly for sure. She's smart, she's super smart. And, you know, on that note, I thought about that, how intelligent she is. And it made me think about Hanshi Legacy. He always says he will take the smartest martial artist in the room over the most physically capable one. And I'm not suggesting she's not physically capable. I'm just saying she's got the main thing that you need to be a great martial artist, which is the brain power behind her. She's both traditional and innovative. So both of those things. You know, and then for me, like I always talk about like my personal, her students are so good. Like you go to her club, her students are so good. They execute with a level of technical perfection that is like far superior, extremely superior. And it's not only in the physical realm. Adette runs a tight ship over there. She trains her students not only physically, but when you go in there, they treat a sensei like a sensei should be treated. They treat a fellow karateka the way a fellow karateka should be treated. And she's training those people right. Like I look up to her a lot when it comes to how she trains her students and what she does with her business. And, you know, one of the things I really love about Adette when we get together is she always challenges my thinking in a good way. If I'm going off on a tangent, she has a great way of bringing me back. That doesn't make me feel bad. She always retains my my ego and doesn't make me feel bad when I'm making a mistake. And you know, in the end, I'm always excited to see her and talk to her. And when I'm with her, I always feel good when I'm with her. I never feel bad. And that's my introduction to everybody for Kyoshi Adette Rice. Also, she's super high ranking. I should have said that right off the top. She's a 7th degree black belt, legit, and total badass karate practitioner.
God, I hope I can live up to this introduction. Holy crap.
Well, so this is actually going to be my first question. I'm going to come back and do a little bit of a thing, letting people watching know a few things. But how does it feel to hear that from a friend, someone who looks up to you, who you look up to? You know, how does that feel being introed?
I'm speechless. Like, you know, I have so much love and admiration for Randy. It's basically what I'm hearing him say about me to me is exactly how I feel about him. Like down to the letter. Like it's very humbling. It's very heartwarming, and really, it's almost a bit intimidating because I'm just a girl out there punching and kicking and doing my thing, and you know, to be seen that way is it's awesome, but it's a bit overwhelming too. It's
amazing.
Yeah.
I want to come back to that, and I just want to chat first to the people watching. First off, if you're parents and you got kids under 18 and you're responsible for them, you're going to hear some swearing, moist likely. We're not really watching what we say here. This one's called, I'm going to speak moistly tonight. It's called Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. And the chat part of it is that we're just a crew hanging out, and we want you to be privy to that. Like Sensei Dauphin said, so much of the inspiration for this is how much we've learned by actually just watching other people have a normal conversation. And our goal is to make that. The other thing is, to that end, you can be part of this, the people watching. There's a chat button on your screen, and we welcome your questions. And I'm not going to lie, if your question's shite, Robert won't pass it on to us. If your question's good, he will. And then we read it. And if we think it's shite, it won't get read either. So you got 2 tiers there. But many do get through. So we look forward to those. Sensei, it's a real pleasure for me to do this with you because I've obviously trained at your dojo. I remember one of my favorite days in recent martial arts time was doing all the different, there was some jiu-jitsu, some kung fu, there was straight up karate at your club. And it was just one of those days where I left feeling so part of this community. And the one thing that I always say to Sensei Dauphin, and in fact, Sensei Dauphin and Sensei Suino have, is their friendship furthers martial arts. You have a highly successful dojo, and we'll talk about that. Yet you and the heads of the 2 other successful dojos in your town all just kind of hang out, quaff beers, and get along. How important is it that that is true? And what do you think of the old school dynamic where you had to hate the person across the road?
Yeah, that old school dynamic. There was no way that you were going to visit somebody else's dojo to have a coffee or, you know, get together for beers. No, it's certainly not letting your sensei know that you were doing that, or even the heads. Like if you were part of the same organization, you could do that. But no, every dojo in town was an enemy. when I opened the dojo, it's been 21 years. I would not have been able to do it had it not been for my friendships. James Freeze, he's, Randy and I are so close, but James has been like my brother, right? So he was there. It was no option. He was there to help me. I was there to help him. So if we didn't have that friendship, I would have still been successful, but it wouldn't have been as fun doing it. And so then it just seemed natural to bring people in. And so, of course, Randy became part of our little weird family. And Aubrey Brawley up at the Krav Maga studio, he got brought into our weird little family. And then we got Dave Hoover. And it's like, you know what? We are going to do better as an industry, as a group of martial artists, if we can just all pool our resources. You're good at this. I'm good at this. So let's help each other out. So those relationships are paramount to the future of martial arts and the business of martial arts too.
Well, I love it. And I know that we all agree. How is it down there in Michigan for you with that, Sensei? How do you find that vibe between clubs?
Oh, I mean, it's changed so much. I had the same experience, and we've talked about this a little bit before. I was raised in that environment where everybody talked bad about everybody else. Even if you didn't know anything about their club, you had to talk bad about them. It just seemed like it was part of the culture. Now I'm friends with 65, 70% of the people within 100 miles of here. We've done work together. We've done workshops, businesses. We call each other for advice. Man, it's just it's a much better place to be.
Sensei Rice, let's do what we've been doing with all of our guests. So let's go back to the era in which you started. What was it? What did it feel like? And how did you end up walking into your first class? Tell us everything.
Oh my, the why of why I started training is really uninspiring. So the dojo in my neighborhood opened up when I was about 12. And I was very athletic. My mother said to me, hey, there's a karate school up the street. Do you want to go learn some karate? I said, no. Why would I want to do that? Karate's for losers.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. We got to unpack this. How did you think that? Like, why?
I didn't know. I was 12. I was cool. It was like people in pajamas yelling, well, that's how I saw it, right? Like it seemed absurd to me. So my mom put that to rest. Fast forward 6 years. So now I have a boyfriend. Oh, all the worst stories start with she had a boyfriend. And he was training at the local karate school. And so long story short, I joined the dojo to irritate him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did something to just poke at me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to enter your little world. So I did. I went to a class. And then it was like, wow, this is cool. I like this. Did my first class. And I was like, it was a Tuesday night. It was a Tuesday night white belt class, and there was only one other female in the class, and it was a novice class, but there was everything up to black belts in it, and it's like this is neat. I like this, and as I said, I was very athletic, so I still found it a challenge. And so the next day I came back again, and it was a Wednesday afternoon. Not as many people, got to spend more one-on-one time with the sensei. By Thursday night, came back for my next class, and that was it. Mm-hmm. That was it. 3 classes, boom, boom, boom. And I was sold. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And at the time I was bodybuilding, and I was looking at doing competitive natural bodybuilding. That was where my focus was. And I'm like, forget that. And I kept going to the gym, but my focus after that 3rd class was karate.
I love that. So, I mean, we all have our own answers and discuss them with Sensei Suino, especially because he was our first guest. But what was it about that first week? What got its hooks into you? And you just said, this is my path now.
It was the people. I had a very charismatic sensei. So that helped, because the energy in the class was it was big, because he was larger than life. And it was the physicality. It was the traditions. It was, and really the traditions, to see the respect, like immediately, boom, as soon as sensei walked on the floor, I didn't have a clue. I'm standing there in my gi that's not hemmed, and my belt that's not tied right. And then all of a sudden he walked in the room, and everybody snapped to attention. And it's like, shit, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That it was all of those things put together that just made me go, wow, this is different, and this is awesome.
And Sensei Dauphin tends to like to ask this one about just your early training partners. And Sensei, you want to?
Who is who was in the room Adette when you first went in, and who are the people that helped you, and who are the people that you don't got to say the names. You can say the names about the people you liked. Well, you can say any names you want, quite frankly, but you're with safe people. You got lots of backup. But I'm just always curious what the atmosphere was like. You know, with Sensei Legacy, I know the people that were in the room when he first walked in the door. It was, you know, John Pearson was there, and Jack Dunham was there, and people like that. And so I always like to hear from other people, like, who were you bouncing yourself off of when you first came in?
So those early classes, I would say that most of the people that I started training with, or who were training at the time that I was there, most of them have dropped off the face of the planet. But it's interesting, because I was thinking today, because I figured at some point tonight I would be asked, you know, who are the people that have influenced me? And, you know, so many people have influenced me. And so this actually goes to that question, thinking of the people who were there. So as I said, there weren't many females in the dojo. But there was one woman who was training at the time. She doesn't train anymore. She is, I would consider her the person most responsible for where I am today, because her name was Darlene, and she was a brown belt, and she was a blue belt when I started training, a brown belt when this incident happened. So I was an orange belt. I'd been training for about 6 months, or it might have been longer, say 9 months. I was getting ready to test for my green belt, and I was done. There had been an incident in class with one of the instructors, and I felt like I was just being hammered on for some technical errors, and so I quit. I like full on quit. I left class that night. I emptied my locker. I filled up my bag, packed up my stuff, and I was like out the door. And Darlene is like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" So she drags me back in, and we have this whole conversation. And you know how they say you don't remember what people say, just how they make you feel? I can't tell you what she said to me that night. I have no idea. I don't remember. It was 30 years ago. But what she said to me completely turned my perspective around. And what she said to me that night changed everything. Not just that I didn't quit, but it redirected me. It redirected my focus. And I was just an orange belt. Like, I'm so fresh to this. But it was such a pivotal moment, because I could have walked out that night and I never would have come back. I know I wouldn't have come back. It was that much of a situation. Now, talking about the environment of the club at the time, she really represented what it felt like in the dojo at the time, the particular group of students, the cohort of students that we had going on at that time. We were very supportive of one another. It was a lot of encouragement. There was a lot of motivation, a lot of push. And what I didn't see was the hammering that I was getting in class was actually meant to just push me, and I just hit that breaking point. But that's what it was like. And there were so many great people that were training in the dojo that time, and it breaks my heart that so many of them didn't stay with it, because there were some phenomenal martial artists. I do know that the senpai of the dojo at the time, his name was Mitch Harrell. I know that he's still teaching up north, but of most of the people that I trained with at that original school, they're all gone. But they were amazing people. Really, the environment that my sensei set out there was fantastic.
Is there any jerks? Anybody who was a jerk? And you don't have to say their name, but if there was, what was it that made them a jerk?
Yeah. So there was this guy. He was a brown belt, became a black belt while I was a Q belt. And, you know, we talk, I don't know if it's like this at every dojo. We refer to Shodans as having black belt syndrome. All of a sudden, they are the shit as soon as they've got that black belt on. And this guy, that was him. And he was so condescending and so patronizing. And you kind of had to sit back and take it as a Q belt. And it was just, I knew what I did not want to be. He defined for me what I did not want to be, and the kind of students that I just didn't like, I didn't want to work with. And it was awful because my sensei ended up becoming quite busy with things that were going on in his life and in around the dojo and whatnot. So this particular guy ended up teaching a lot of classes, and it was just, yeah, he was brutal, absolutely brutal. And looking back in hindsight too, you know, it's a wonder to me that he was even involved in the martial arts, because he seemed to be the antithesis of what we would see as a representative of the martial arts. So yes, and there have been a lot of jerks over the years, but just looking back to those early years, he's somebody that really stands out for me.
So what town was this? Who was that sensei? And you ever talk to Darlene these days?
So I lost track of Darlene a long time ago, and she was older. So 30 years ago, it's entirely possible that Darlene's not alive anymore. Like she was an older student. So this is in Hamilton, and my sensei was Leighton Morrison. And
you still in touch with him?
Yes, we chat on Facebook, and he's now he works in the film industry. He's a stuntman.
Huh?
So, and that's what he's been doing since he stopped teaching. He went into film. So. Yeah,
I'll keep an eye out for him. Maybe I'll see him on set someday.
You can't miss him. He's like 6'5". He's got this giant beard, bald head, and like just a big, massive guy. Yeah.
Great. I'm actually going to jump into a question. Chris, you made the cut. So how do you think, because we were talking about this before everyone was let into the chat, how do you think that the current global situation with the virus and the online training could change how we train in the future?
You know, I was very ambivalent about the way that we're training right now, mostly because I don't necessarily like change when it's thrust upon me. I like to be the voice of change, the person who's in control of the change, and this is so out of our control. I see this as a real opportunity to stay connected to students who would otherwise not be able to train. So right now it's being forced upon us. But going forward, you know, once we can get back into our dojos and training in person, you know, if you've got somebody who is going on vacation and they don't want to miss their training, you know what, Zoom yourself into a class and you're going to be able to see all of us. Like, we have a real opportunity if we can perfect how we're transmitting the lessons, how we're as teachers, but also through the technology, just getting the lessons out there. And refining our teaching methods to reach more students. You know, can martial arts be taught exclusively through this means? I'm a big believer that you need to take that punch on the jaw. You need to feel that choke. You need to, right? Like you just got to feel it. But this is a good way to maintain those fundamentals and to keep those connections. So I think we can look at it as a gift. We have to rise as teachers. And we just need to work with what we've got. And I think we've got the opportunity to grow from this.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. It's interesting you say that. I just read this article about a university professor who said, for me, it's not about sending the material out to the students. It's about trying to stay connected to them. That's what this technology is for. It's to stay connected and keep the community. But it's limited in what you can actually deliver.
Yeah, 100%.
So in those early days, you're at the dojo, you're training hard, you've gotten over that initial hump, thanks to Darlene, and you've got a new perspective. What are you most drawn to? Are you looking at the fighting? Are you looking at the physical aspects? Are you looking at the kata? Or are you just kind of taking it all in and going, I want to be, you know, did you know you were going to do this for life then? And what component of the martial arts was it that you were most focused on?
Oh, it has evolved so much over the years that I kind of have to backtrack over my journey to really look at that. So I knew that I would be a martial artist for life. That was, you know, that was something that was never an option. I would always stay training. Being a professional martial artist, not something that was ever on my scope. You know, I didn't really have an interest in teaching. Being an entrepreneur, yes, my father was an entrepreneur. My grandmother was. I mean, it's in the blood. But I didn't think that martial arts would be the way that I would go. I was in the early years very drawn to kata, so that's where I really put my focus, and staying traditional. So I was very competitive. A lot of tournaments, a lot of travel, a lot of just getting out there and grinding away at the tournaments. And I exclusively competed in kata for the early part of my competitive career. But it was very important for me to stay traditional. So I'd hit those open tournaments and be traditional. Like that was just, I was arrogant about it. I'm going to be traditional and that's it. And sometimes it worked for me as it didn't, but at the end of the day, it was a lot of fun. And then, it evolved. Once I got my first taste of fighting in a tournament, well, that was it. Now I had to do both. I had to be and then weapons, damn, now I'm a triple threat. I had to be. So it was about getting out there and just, I loved competing. Like I'm very, very competitive, but traditional was the way I had to go. So it was staying very focused there. I didn't really look at karate as a profession until, quite a bit later. It was a number of years later, and it kind of fell in my lap, sort of.
Well, let's get to that in a sec. But so one of the things we actually chatted right out of the gate with Sensei Suino in our first night, his idea of heritage martial arts, his idea of Budo. What's your idea of traditional? When you say traditional, I know a lot of the people watching are going to be like, me too, but I'm not even sure what that means.
Okay. So, I have to refer to somebody here. How did Jesse define it? A modern traditionalist? Jesse Ankamp recently wrote a testimonial for me when we had our 20th anniversary. And I believe it was modern traditionalist. So traditional for me is, it can't be trying to, okay, this is challenging. I love sport karate. I really do. I think it's very athletic. I think it is very enjoyable to watch. When I think tradition, it's about the formality. It is about the adhering to the principles of the kata. It is about taking those principles of the kata and applying them out. It's about trying to limit modifications that take away from the understanding and applications of the kata. Not making it theatrical, but making it a presentation of the fighting skills. To me, that is tradition. It is adhering to the past while applying it to modern times. If I can't understand, or if you can't explain to me why you're doing that move that you're doing, then it's dance. And I don't do the dance of karate. I do the fight of karate. So for me, that's what it comes down to. Now, if somebody makes a change to a kata because it makes relevant sense, that can still be tradition. It's still about the fighting. It's not about the dance. Am I explaining myself okay? I can kind of go on about this one.
Look, you can go on as long as you want. I'm hearing that very clearly, and I'm also loving it. And I mean, that's all
Didn't I tell you guys that she's super smart? Didn't I tell you guys she's super smart?
You know what? Let me jump on that because I actually wrote that down during his introduction. Okay, it's a given that you're smart. You don't get to debate it. Let's just say that's the thought experiment. How important is that? We heard what Sensei Legacy thinks. How important is it to you to either be or work with smart martial artists, or does it matter?
I think it's very important, but smart comes in different ways. Intelligence comes in different ways. And, I think if somebody is able to logically or rationally explain something, that displays a level of intelligence. Does somebody necessarily need to be very book read? No, not if you can walk me through your thought process. So intelligence, it's very important to me. Somebody who is intelligent is able to see varying sides of situations, see the different perspectives. And I think that people, I don't want to say of lesser intelligence because, there's some amazing less intelligent people, right?
Say lesser intelligence. Some people are less intelligent. I'll help you there. Some people are less intelligent.
Okay. But they're still good and decent people. But I think that when you don't have that depth of knowledge, you really limit your perspective, which then really creates bias and prejudice that makes it really hard for you to communicate or educate or be educated. And then we run into all kinds of problems. So intelligence is a very high list item for me. Right, and I try to surround myself with intelligent, smart people.
Yeah, I love that breakdown of it. I mean, I know I agree. Book smart is not what we're talking about. It's, can you take the thing and expand it through your own ability to apply logically? I love that word logic. You know, it's like, does it, like even when what you said about the fighting idea. I actually want to jump forward to something based on what you just said. One of the things I read in one of the articles about you is that it's really important to you that your club instills discipline without insisting on obedience. And I love that, but I'd like to hear your thoughts and why that's important and how you came to that idea.
So, you know, you can lead with an iron fist. And if you scare people, then, you know, as long as somebody is afraid of you, they will follow. But that goes back to the intelligence. If somebody is intelligent enough to make the decision to follow my leadership without me having to put fear into them or coerce them, then we are going to be able to work together as teacher and student. If you're just following me because you're afraid of me or because I've made you, you know, follow this iron fist, then you're not going to get anything from it. It's going to be a very limited relationship. And I remember one of my senseis many years ago said, you know, you need to look at your students like you're holding on to a pile of sand in your hand. You know, if you hold it there and take care of that and hold it up, the sand will stay in your hand. As soon as you close your fist and try to clench it tight, all the sand starts to fall out. And that really resonated with me. So discipline in the dojo is necessary. We are teaching a military art. We are teaching people to hurt other people. And if you don't have the discipline to train hard, to work your body, and to just not be an ass when it comes to using these skills, then it's lost. You need to have discipline, but it can't be about ruling with an iron fist. Because then you're not allowing people to make their own decisions and logically and rationalize their way through what they're learning.
Yeah, right on. And then going back to your history, because I like sort of history break out a bit. So you're competing before you've got your black belt. You're just training hard and competing all the time. Yeah. Yeah, and all the time. Did you find that the fighting for tournaments or fighting in dojos needed to be blended? Because it sounds like you got real attracted to the fighting the second you felt either someone else's fist or yours on them. Did you find that you were fighting in two ways, or were you fighting for a tournament style pretty much all the time?
Really, back then, I didn't see a difference. Fighting was fighting to me. Now my sensei, like Leighton Morrison in those early days, he was a fighter. So the fact that I was a kata person that came out of his school was kind of interesting. And that was based on the students that he taught. No, he was a fighter, and he taught us to just fight, to just get in there and make the hit. And if it got you a point, great. Or, you know, it was just about fighting. There weren't two styles of fighting for us back then. It was just get in there, hit them, don't get hit, get your ass out. It was as simple as that.
And then as you made your way toward your first degree black belt, you mentioned earlier that, you know, that guy at your club, he had that black belt syndrome. What to you as an instructor of a large school is the ideal? And again, I know a lot of the people watching are either around that level or striving for it the way anybody with a colored belt probably is. What does a Shodan mean for you? What would you like to see a Shodan walk in the room having, knowing, offering?
I don't have a single answer for that. When I look at my students who have attained Shodan, each one of them is so different, and my expectations for them have been different. I look at somebody like Ryan Potter. When I graded him to Shodan, I expected excellence, no mistakes, hit hard, be fierce, physical fitness had to be there, humility had to be there. Ryan, we're still working on that one. Just kidding. I love you, Ryan. But if I had these very strict set of expectations for him. A number of years later, after he graded, I graded my oldest Shodan, and he is now 74 years old. So John would have been about 70 when I graded him to Shodan. So my expectations of him were very different. So physicality has to be put aside. For me, a Shodan is somebody who can take instruction but can lead. Somebody who can guide a student as well as push them from behind, can be on both sides of the student. All of my black belts, whether or not they go on to teach as black belts, are taught to be teachers, because there is this, whether it exists in the real world or not, there is this perception that black belts teach, and that black belts are respectful, and that black belts are honorable. And all those wonderful characteristics that people believe a black belt to be, I stand by that. So my black belts have to be honorable. They have to be honest. They have to be sincere. They have to be hardworking. They need to have that honesty of character that really kind of supersedes the physicality. Now, my guys kick ass too, so I make them work really hard too. But that to me, what a black belt. I did not want that black belt syndrome to ever land itself in my school, because he was such an ass. Oh my goodness, right. I haven't thought about him in years.
I think that's great. And by the way, I love and hate when I see your students at the tournaments, because I know that they're incredible, and that A, it's such a wonderful thing how you support us, but B, you go home with too much of the hardware for my money. Sensei Dova?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Ryan Potter. That guy is everything that karate needs from the next generation of people. And as a sensei, you always got to be proud when you can produce somebody like that. And I mean, there's lots of great black belts at Driftwood. I'm not the sensei there, so I can pick my favorites and say who I like a lot. And I'm super high on Ryan Potter. If you get a chance to see that guy do kata, do weapons, you definitely don't want to miss the opportunity to see him do stuff. And Adette's done a great job training him. I want to ask you about more experiences in your life, Adette. A lot of the stuff you're talking about, I want to learn something on this call too. And one of the things I want to learn about is, I do know that you competed a lot. Oddly, you and I never ever crossed, I don't think we ever competed in a tournament together. I don't think it ever happened, and I don't know why that is, but it just didn't. I'd really like to hear about, it doesn't have to be your biggest victory, but what were some of the great moments for you in a grading or in a tournament where you were like, holy shit, and why was it? What was it? What was the room like? And then if you want to, please feel free to let us know times when you got knocked back a peg. For me, I'm looking at the people on the call, and Sensei Copeland's on this call, and I remember being a green belt in his club and landing one good punch on him and then getting the crap beat out of me in a very humane way for the next 10 minutes. And that was an aha moment for me, right? So just curious about any of those for you. And I think everybody on this call they would value hearing some of those things.
Oh man, getting knocked back. That's happened so much. Oh my God. Okay. So I can't even think of ones that have really stuck out in my head. We called them attitude adjustments, and I was a competitor and I won a lot. So I was arrogant. So I had to be knocked back quite a bit. And in our dojo, that didn't fail to happen. And the beautiful thing was my gender made no difference. So if I was walking in and I was just too on my high horse, I would get knocked back. And it happened frequently. I was not the most humble young martial artist. I had to grow into that. But So probably one of the people that is most responsible for really helping me keep my head on straight, because he wasn't afraid to kick me in the head and would do it whenever he got the chance, was James. You know, a lot of people.
I knew you were going to say James.
Okay, but what a lot of people don't. So they see James and I, and we are like frickin' frack. We are like, we talk to each other every day. You know, when he's down, I'm up. When I'm up, you know, like it just, we just really balance each other out. But what a lot of people don't know is we did not like each other. In those early years, we did not like each other. We were not friends. Now, fun story. The first time we were introduced, somebody was trying to set us up. He was a blue belt, I was a green belt. We were at a tournament, of all things, and somebody tried to set us up, and it was like, okay, no. and we both felt the same way. Not that we didn't like each other back then. We were in different cities and blah, blah, blah. So then I ended up training at his school. We ended up with the same sensei, and yeah, we were not friends. We weren't enemies, but we weren't friends. And there was a period of time that I was really having to kind of fight for my place. But then I because of what my position was in the dojo, I was probably, again, big for my breeches. And James was not afraid to knock that shit out of me, like not at all. So I would say that probably some of my biggest humblings came from him and the students who were training around us at the time. Rich Mayo was another one. I remember my brown belt grading, and Rich is a really big guy. He has a brother named Peter, another really big guy. And I had to fight them for my brown belt, and they just tossed me around like I was a rag doll. And I went into that grading arrogant as hell. And that one really brought me down to earth. So yeah, I've had a lot of them over the years. I try to keep my nose pretty clean, so I haven't had too many in the last few years. although my fourth Dan grading, Hanshi Montalvo kind of rattled my cage a little bit too. So that was very humbling as well, because I was this young thing, and here's this older teacher, and blah, blah, and wow, he brought me down a couple pegs too, so that was pretty awesome.
Well, if you got to be brought down a couple pegs, there's no shame in being brought down a couple pegs by a guy like Hanshi Montalvo.
Absolutely.
So we talked about that, Adette, but you didn't talk about any shining moments, and I'd really love to hear about. As a competitor, does anything stand out? You standing in a spot and just standing there thinking, I know it's happened to me. I know there's people on this call that it's happened to, where you're just like, oh my God, I worked so hard for this and it actually happened.
Yeah, and it didn't necessarily result in medals, but I remember shortly after I got my Shodan, we went down to Windsor to compete in Sensei Copeland's tournament. And so I was doing one of my first black belt divisions, and I was in black belt weapons, and the senpai of our dojo at the time, he was a fierce competitor. This was a guy that when he got up in the ring and they announced his name, people stopped. They surrounded the ring to watch this guy compete. So I'm having to compete against my senpai, and I'm like scared, of course, intimidated as anything, and the scores came up and we tied, and it's like, what just happened? Like that, it was like, this is like the most amazing moment of my life. And we had to do the tiebreaker, and I got called up first, and so I did my kata, and then he came up and did the exact same kata, knowing he was gonna smoke me, and absolutely did. But being able to stand there with him, second place to his first place, and knowing that I missed it by just this much, that stands out to me as one of my finest moments. Other championships and everything aside, that was amazing.
I love that. And to the people listening, I love the idea that somebody's shining moment is a second place. Like, I think we don't hear that story enough. we hear the story of the win, the deal went through, but the idea that that let you know something about yourself and the actual on paper result wasn't as relevant. I really hear that, and I appreciate that story. I think it's unavoidable to chat about something. We've got Christiana, we've got Kimberly chipping in, and then also, I want to read this name correctly, Francisco Narvaez, I hope I say that right. They're asking about being a woman in the martial arts, about being a woman in male-dominated martial arts, and you mentioned gender not mattering to the people you were sparring with. And the one thing Francisco specifically asked about is he's got a friend who, just by being innately smaller as a woman, is finding maybe a bit of a struggle. So what's your experience with that? What's your perspective on it? Speak as much or as little about it as you want, because, you know, Sensei Dofa and I chatted about it, and nobody on this call sees you as a female martial artist, but a lot of the people are interested in your experience through that.
Right. So it's important to, I don't want to be known as a successful female martial artist. I just want to be a successful martial artist, not a successful female business owner, but a successful business owner. But I do appreciate the fact that as a female, I am then role modeling for female martial artists and female business people. So I have to appreciate that position. So I'm really sitting on both sides of that conversation. I want to be taken seriously, but then I have to really help my gender to move forward. It still is a very male-dominated industry, a male-dominated sport. It's changing, but that stigma is still there. And depending where in the world you are, it still very much exists as a male-dominated sport. I mean, we're fortunate here that it's a little bit more accepted for women, but you know, it's still seen as a male thing. Fighting in general, boxing, wrestling, martial arts, all the fighting arts, they're seen as a male sport. When it comes to things like size, like for me, I didn't change anything that I did in my training because of my gender. My size, I was smaller. Like when I started training, I was about 120 pounds. I'm not super tall, but I was strong. And so I knew that male or female, 120-pound man or 120-pound woman, they're going to have the same kind of physicality. So yeah, the male might have more muscle density, although not how I was back then as a bodybuilder. But you know, just appreciating that different humans have different body types. You know, I have fought with some pretty small men, and you know, I don't fight with them different because they're men. I don't, you know, we fight or we train, you know. So I think the most important thing for women to do as martial artists is get out of their head as a female martial artist. You know, if you have special considerations that you need to make because of your size or because of your frame, then do that because that's how you're built, not because you're a woman. And then just, you know, don't take anything less than what you're worth. Just do it. Prove yourself. And we might have to prove ourselves a little bit more, but that's okay. That's okay.
Hey,
it makes it worth it.
Do you have any advice for a lady who gets, so, you know, I know Hanshi Montalvo treats the girls the same as the guys. Sensei Legacy has always treated the girls the same as the guys. There's no, in our club, we have, like, after Sensei Legacy, the highest ranking person in our club is a female, Sensei Janice Shockey. Do you have any advice for people who get treated differently because they're a female, they're gay, they're this, they're that, like in their club?
If you feel like you're being marginalized by the people that you're training with, say something. Don't accept it. You don't have to. And, you know, if you're not being respected by the people that you're training with, go to your sensei, tell them. Because if you're training with a sensei who you respect and they respect you and they're valuing your gender, your sexuality, anything about you, then they will stand up for you if you don't feel that you're able to do it. But don't just take it. Don't sit back and take it because you think you have to. The dojo should be a safe place for everyone. So, you know, no matter where you fit on the spectrum of things, you just have to stand up. And if you're not in that place where you feel confident, your sensei will do it for you. And if your sensei won't, get out of there. Get another one. Because you can't have one that doesn't have your back.
Can't have a sensei that doesn't have your back. I love that. I really do. So I want to get back to your path towards Hanshi Montalvo. But a question from Mike Russell, you do have a very successful business. And maintaining, he wants to know how you maintain the standards of your organization with a larger scale. And if you ever find it a challenge to maintain that traditional aspect with business decisions that have to be made. I mean, everybody here except for me runs a relatively large club, and maybe you can all chip in and chat about that.
I'd say she's like this person, she can answer herself, but she's organized on a level that other people are not organized. Like James and I always joke about, like, if we're going to all go out, she tells us when we're going to arrive, where we're going to be, where we're going to be sitting. She doesn't go as far as to tell me what I have to eat at the restaurant, but she probably would if she thought I couldn't handle it.
She's got a few suggestions ready. So does that help you scale up, Sensei?
Yeah. So, maintaining the standards is absolutely it's very important. And as the dojo becomes bigger, as you scale it, it's putting the priorities in place. I see a lot of younger instructors, newer instructors, or new business owners who are very eager to bring in new students, get as many students as we can. Let's fill the mat. And I understand that desperation, because you want to build your business and you want to make it big, and looking at that business side of things. And what a lot of these younger instructors don't realize is that if you scale it back, maintain your standards, then the growth will come. It's when you start letting your standards slide and just pack them and stack them, as I like to put it, then the entire quality comes down. It's like if you're going to go out for a steak, you're going to go to a nice restaurant that is going to serve you well, prepare it well. I could go to Kelsey's and get a steak, and they're just going to, process it out. So it's about just holding yourself to that level. And how I managed to do that was find the students who stood out, those students who really excelled, not just at karate, but had the personalities, the communication skills, the ability to hold the room, the ability to maintain the standards. And then I trained them and taught them. So I look at, again, his name is going to come up again. Damn, he's going to be impossible to deal with tomorrow. Ryan Potter. He's okay, granted, I raised him. Oh, I didn't raise him. I mean, he's got his mom, but in the dojo, right? I brought him up, and so I was able to mold him, but he's a personality all unto himself. So, I raised him to have that mentality. And that's what I do with my instructors. And Nicole Camara is another one, Christopher Perry, Jackie Kimmel, I've got so many of these great instructors, and I learned to delegate. So once I had them trained, then I had to release the reins.
Yeah. I like that. Sensei Suino, you want to chip in on that? Because I know you're big on team building, you're big on scaling. You guys might have something in common there.
Well, I definitely always desired to grow to the point where the dojo can sustain itself and give us opportunity to travel, to learn new things, to have a nice facility. And I achieved all that. But like you, I've always felt that the most important thing was what was going on the mat. The martial arts have to be right, and the character of the people has to be right. And I don't know if I have a solution. I'd love to hear more about this. I've been really blessed. The top dozen people at JMAC are incredible human beings. They are great martial artists, but they're also they're people of character. They're accomplished in life outside the dojo. And I don't have a secret formula. I've just been lucky.
Well, I got a question that might lead to you hearing some more, Sensei. So Luis David Munoz, who, by the way, I want to throw something out. A couple weeks ago, you asked David a question to Super Dan, and you said you weren't in great physical shape, and I negated that. I said, yeah, he's just being humble, and you suggested that you weren't. And by the way, I owe you an apology for that, because obviously you're telling your own truth, and I never want to negate the work people put in. I just want to say that out loud, because I think you've worked really hard to be as excellent as you are, and to suggest you just had an innate athleticism that you didn't is to negate your work, which we all know is probably the more important part. So anyways, I want to say that, but I also want to ask you a question. What is it that you've learned from years of teaching, Sensei Rice, that you think every teacher should do, or qualities they should have? And I think that might be a bit of, you know, when you're building that team, and what do you need those people to do or have?
It comes back to standards. You need to have those standards, and then be consistent in your expectations. Now, you know, every student is different, but when you start letting the quality slip, then the whole ship starts to sink. So consistency in technique, consistency in delivery, consistency in attitude. I think that along with, you know, we say patience, but it's not so much patience, compassion on the mat is important as well. You know, you need to have an understanding of where your students are coming from to be able to take them on their journey. So for me, that's crucial, because if we can get up there and we can deliver to them, you know, everything that we believe that the martial arts are, but if that doesn't connect to what they believe it is or what their journey is, we are missing the mark entirely. So having that understanding, that compassion, that consistency, key to being a good teacher.
I'm sorry, Shawn, I don't want to derail this, and this is a little bit of we can come back to it if you like, but I'm really curious, Sensei Rice, if you have ever had to fire a student, and if so, why? What were the reasons why you had to invite them to leave the dojo?
Yes, I've had to fire students, a few over the years, and usually it lended itself to them bringing a sense of either intolerance onto the mat, or an attitude that just did not fit with the level of learning that I wanted. So yes, I have fired students. I'm not afraid to fire students. If any of you out there, just know, okay. No, I have, it's been a long time since I've had to do that, but yes, I have. And, you know, I've always said that the door to my dojo is always open to former students. Come on in, except for a couple of you. And even then, you know, if they've been able to turn things around, then, you know, we might be able to have a conversation. But yes, I have. And it's unfortunate to have to do it, but I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I will work with them as long as I can until I can't. When it starts affecting other students or my enjoyment of being in there, I don't have time for that. No time.
Yeah, that's what I tell my former students too. I tell them that Kyoshi Rice's door is always open to you.
Yeah.
So our questions are being asked so perfectly. It's like they're being fed to us by an AI, because you were talking about guiding students on their journey and having to respect that their journeys might not all be identical. And the question from Anna is, how important is it, or is it important to push yourself? However, when is enough? Does a limit exist when pushing yourself? And then me, Shawn, I'm going to add, does that also include to pushing your students? What's the limit?
Pushing myself. There's no limits for me personally. You know, I will go as far as I go until I'm forced to stop, and then I'll just figure out a way to keep going. Like that's really all you can do, because there's going forward or there's going backwards. And I don't believe in going backwards. So for me personally, I will push, whether it's physically, whether it's, you know, emotionally, but there's no limits until I'm forced to stop, and I'll just figure out another way. In terms of pushing my students, I will always push my students farther than they think they can go, because they will always throw blocks up way before and if I see that a student is then pushing themselves too far, where they are putting their own mental health at risk, their own physical health at risk, then I'll rein them in and redirect. But most often students don't see their own potential. So I will push until they can see that.
I get why you and Sensei Dauphin get along. I really do. I can see him nodding, but I mean that the things you're saying are the things I go to him to learn and to be pushed that way. Sensei Dofe, do you want to take over a little and lead us into her relationship with Hanshi Montalvo and then that next phase of her training and teaching?
Sure. I guess, again, like it's one of those chance moments, right? Like sometimes the universe just casts people together. As I said, I was going to Niagara Falls to compete, and Sensei Legacy was going to Niagara Falls to teach a white crane seminar. And I was lucky enough that he let me tag along, as he often did. He let me tag along with him, mostly so he could, I guess I was one of the blockheads that he could hurt when he was demonstrating to other people how to do this stuff. And coincidentally, Hanshi Montalvo was also there teaching. There's a person who shall not be named who brought these people together, and it's probably that was his only redeeming quality in life, was that he brought these people together. But
He who should not be named.
yeah, what's that, Adette?
He who should not be named.
He who should not be named, right? But that was my first introduction to Hanshi Montalvo, and again, as I said, to Adette and as well to James. That was where we kind of all met each other, and I would say it was I don't know, instant attraction all around, but at least on my part, it was instant attraction all around. I know Hanshi Montalvo right away was drawn to Sensei Legacy, and Hanshi Legacy was right away drawn to Hanshi Montalvo. It was like they were fast friends 5 minutes after they knew each other. But I believe that was your first introduction as well to Hanshi Montalvo as well, right? There were a couple other people there, but I could be wrong about that. So if I'm wrong, please set me straight.
My introduction to Hanshi Montalvo was in 2004. It was Niagara Falls. And it was it was when I graded. Yeah, that was it was instant. It was absolutely instant. You know, Hanshi Montalvo, for anybody who has met him in person, you know what we're talking about. He is just bigger than life. He is charismatic. He is you know, a quick smile. He can read you, though. Oh my goodness, do not try to get anything past that man, because yeah, the way that he can read people is something else. And looking back in retrospect, knowing how well he can read people, the fact that he embraced me and embraced James and Hanshi Legacy and everything, you really trust his judgment. I'm not saying, you know, I'm an amazing person, but what I'm saying is he will only bring to himself quality people. So you know that if he's brought you in, you know, you've got some, and so to earn his trust is huge.
And so,
right.
Yep.
Sorry, I just want to say the fact that you're like you and James. The other thing about Hanshi Montalvo that I really admire is he's just not impressed with if you won a karate tournament once or how tough you think you are. He's just not impressed with that, and he's impressed with other things, which is why he accepted Adette as a student in my belief. Not that she's not tough, that's one of the things, but it's more than that, I think, with him, as you said. Like, he reads people differently. He's a man who's shot and killed people for a living, for people on the call who don't know.
So that's
and
something
you'll get to hear about that next week, right? You'll get to hear about
that. That's next what we're doing in plugs. But so I'm always curious, because I mean, I met Sensei Legacy as my first instructor. He pointed me to Sensei Dauphin. Both are still my instructor. I'm really lucky in that I've never had to go seek a new path along my path. So did you have an instructor at the time? I know you're a Hanshi Montalvo student now. What was that for you? And what made you go, oh, yeah, this person's magnetic. Yeah, this person's amazing, but I actually want them to be my sensei?
I think my internet's cutting out. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Is there some stuff? Are there stories there? Is there some punch, kick, choke chat there?
No, there's a dark period in my training. that
you know, like, honestly, if you don't, like,
I'm not going to,
like,
yeah.
Like, let's talk about why you wanted Hanshi Montalvo to be your instructor. Let's talk about that. Why? What was it? Why did you want him to be your instructor?
How many under 18s do we have in here?
I can't say. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we gave a disclaimer at the beginning. So fuck those kids. Fuck those kids.
Fuck those kids.
Okay, so my 15-year-old is sitting right here, but yeah. No, so in the first time, you know, the first couple conversations that I had with him, the fact that he respected me as a martial artist and a woman, which was amazing. Like, this is definitely a man who he respected me as a woman, but didn't see me as a female martial artist. That was important to me. And the fact that in the first couple conversations we had, he could so easily drop motherfucker. And you all know how he says that, how it just rolls off of his tongue. And I'm like, I love this man. Because he was honest. He was just 100% honest. And I had just come from a lot of years of not such great people. I was training in an environment that was not good for me mentally, not good for me physically, and meeting him. And then after that, like, I did have a period of time where I had a great instructor in Mississauga. He ultimately retired, so I didn't stay with him, and that's what led me to, so I wasn't coming off of a really bad experience going to Hanshi Montalvo. I was actually coming off of a positive experience, but he was just a breath of fresh air, because there was nothing about him that was, there were no red flags. There was nothing that said, this is a guy that's coming after my money, or this is a guy that wants to get connected with me because of my dojo. And my dojo wasn't anything special at the time anyway. This was just a guy that appreciated, a man that appreciated where my journey was at. And then, you know, just seeing him move, like, he's got this fluidity about him. Like, you just know that he'll give you the biggest hug or tear you apart. Like, you can just see that in him. And I just respected everything about him. And it was, you know, that those first couple days of training with him, it was like, yeah, we are, you know, we're on that same vibration. I can totally get with this. And it was instant. It was instant. And I was just, it happened to be at such a time in my life when I needed to have that something. And it basically just landed in my lap.
You know, the thought in my head is, when the student's ready, the teacher arrives, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened.
So I just want to back up a couple years from that. Am I correct that you know, you said much later you started the business side, but if I'm not mistaken, you opened your first dojo in '99. Is that right? Is that when I read an article on you about taking your traveling money and you were going to go travel Europe and you said, fuck that, now's the time to invest in myself. But that's not that long after you started. I mean, you're in your martial arts not even a decade at that point, and you decide you're going to go be a teacher. And not just that, but put your, like, woohoo Ibiza party money on the line and make something yourself. So was that a tough decision, or was that an obvious decision?
No, it was an obvious decision, but again, it was one of those situations that just fell on my lap. You know, my girlfriends and I, we were off to Spain, man. That's where we were going. And it was going to be 3.5 months of hellfire. Yes. And then, you know, somebody called me up. I had started, I believe I was a knee-dan at the time. I had started having the thoughts of, yeah, you know what, maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to teach. I'll run a part-time school, that sort of thing. But then somebody called me up and said, hey, there's a dance studio that's for rent down in the plaza. You might want to go have a look at that. And I'm like, nope, going to Spain. Can't going to Spain. And but then I went and had a look at it, and it's like, oh, this is pretty sweet. I might be able to do going to Spain. And then one of my girlfriends dropped out of the trip. And it's like, well, how are we going to afford the apartment? Okay, well, there's still 3 of us. Okay, we'll go. And another girlfriend dropped out of the trip. And it's like, okay, we're going to have a problem now. Wait, there's that property. I wonder if it's still for rent. So then it's like, okay, let's have another conversation. So really, everything just kind of lined up. My girlfriends had to drop out of the trip. The property was available. So it's like, yeah, I got the money. let's do it. And so I wasn't ready for it, but I was ready for it. It was an obvious choice. Everything was just lining up. I would have been foolish to have passed up on it because I wouldn't have got the opportunity again with the type of facility that became available.
So, I mean, you can speak as broadly or as narrowly as you want on this, but jumping forward basically 21 years, what's been the biggest challenge or challenges in terms of just growing and maintaining a club in your own space?
Oh, biggest challenges. There are new challenges all the time. Maintaining the standards, overcoming the different, we've gone through a couple of recessions over the last 21 years. Just dealing with the overall competition for the market. I mean, those are all pretty standard challenges. I guess balancing home and work. My children have sacrificed a lot for the dojo. So keeping that balance has always been a challenge. And as I say, my 15-year-old is sitting here watching all of this happen right now, giving me looks like, please, Mom, don't put me on camera.
Hi, Sid. Hi, Sid. Hey, Sid. How's it going?
Good. Did you hear it? She called him good. Yeah. So the challenges have changed. So, that was a really big one, is balancing that out, because there were times, I'm not going to lie to you, there were times there where it's like, you know what, if I just wind this down and put the focus on my family, during different low times, say, yeah, this might be a good time to do that wind down. And then we would discuss it as a family, including the kids in the conversation. And I'd say, do you want Mom to have a normal 9 to 5? Oh, hell no, Mom, you need to keep at the dojo. So, I had great support from my family, which made it easy, but that's one of the largest hurdles.
So
who wants a boring mom?
Yeah.
Who wants a mom that isn't a kick-ass, right? Like, no kid wants that. They all want a tough mom. That's who they want. They want to be able to say, my mom can beat up your dad. That's nice. What they want to say.
Sensei, we're not winding down here, but in the past 3 weeks, I did ask these questions later, and I regretted it because our 10 questions that I'm asking every guest spawns a lot of great thoughts that then we don't have time to follow up on. So I'm going to ask you these a little earlier in our night so that then we can, springboard. However, these 10 questions that I'm asking everybody, I'd like you to answer with as little thought as possible, and then later we can chat about it if you like. What is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
Reverse punch.
Who's the most influential martial artist in your life?
Oh, currently, Hanshi Montalvo.
Who do you think culturally is the most influential martial artist of all time, and why?
Bruce Lee, his reach, his scope, his yeah. Everybody knows who he is.
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your training?
I'm not getting any younger, so just being able to keep doing it, punching and kicking, grinding away, that excites me.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive there?
Oh, what are you doing up here?
Who's your favorite film and television martial artist?
Okay, this is going to be awful. So I don't watch martial arts films. So I'm going to say Bruce Lee again, because honestly, I don't watch martial arts films at all. Okay, it's work.
That might be the answer to our next question then. What famous martial artist do you most want to fight, and why?
Famous martial artist that I want to fight. Cynthia Rothrock, because she's old like me. And she's awesome. And I missed the opportunity to meet her. And Ryan is probably giggling away at me in the background because I did the whole fangirl thing when I had the chance to meet her. And I was like, oh my God, no, I can't. Oh, no, I can't. And I didn't. I passed it. Totally flaked on it. Yeah.
If everyone in the world could have one benefit from martial arts, whether they train or not, what would you like everyone in the world to have?
Wow. There's so many benefits. Resilience. Yeah.
Nice. And the last two questions, it's one question, two-parter. What's your greatest achievement and your greatest regret?
My greatest achievement in martial arts or in life?
You answer however you like, Sensei. It's your time.
My greatest achievement was, continues to be, my children. They are spectacular. My greatest regret was that I told my mom that karate was stupid when I was 12.
The lost 6 years.
The last 6 years.
So I actually want to jump in on one of the answers you gave, and it's something that I'm dealing with, and I've chatted about it with my senseis, and I chatted about it with Sensei Russell when he asked the question the other night. Aging as a martial artist, when you're as motivated by martial arts and by your own self, but your body doesn't respond the way it did 20 years earlier. What's your journey with that? What advice do you have for that? Where are you at with that?
So I mentioned growing older. I mean, my brother said to me a few years ago, if you didn't know how many times you've been around the sun, would you know how old you are? And of course, it's all relative, right? We know how old we are because the calendar tells us. So the reality is our body does start to wear down. It just wears down a whole lot slower when you keep it fit. So, the longer that I can keep moving and keep stretching and keep active, I know that I'll be able to keep at this longer. So, I appreciate the fact that there's going to come a point when I'm not moving as fast and I can't go as long, but I will keep pushing until I hit that point. And then I'll try to push a little farther. But, we are as old as we believe ourselves to be. And, barring injuries are a whole separate thing. It takes us a little bit longer to recover perhaps, but we can keep going. As long as we can get up out of bed in the morning and keep it going, we just have to be smart about it, but never stop. Because as soon as you stop, well, you go backwards. There is no stopping. You go forward, you go backwards. There is no middle.
Sensei Dauphin, I see you nod along there.
Yeah, I've said to most of my crew many times that right now, coming into my 49, skidding in with flames into my 49th year, that the 18, the 20, the 25-year-old, the 35-year-old Randy couldn't beat me at anything, except there is one thing that he would be superior always at, is recovering, right? Yeah. That's, when you wake up in the morning and you put your feet on the ground, they're sore. And the first couple times I hit the heavy bag, it hurts. But I will tell you, and I think that I'd love to hear this, once you get the first few under your belt, it just goes back to the way it always is, right? Like you feel like you're 18 again. Once you get the first 5 or 10 under you, it just goes back to the way it always was.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Sensei Suino?
Aging?
Recovering, aging.
I don't accept it, but I have to. It's so frustrating because in the old days you get hurt and the muscles recover, and then as you wear out your tendons, you can warm up and you stop feeling them, and then now I have the joy of turning 60 this year, and the arthritis doesn't train out. You don't recover from arthritis like you do from muscle injuries. You can't warm up past it, or to some degree you can. So my strategy for the next 20 years in martial arts is to try to get Alzheimer's as quickly as possible so I don't remember how bad I feel.
Mm-hmm. I think that's effective.
Gold.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I'm the youngest, lowest ranking guy in this, and this is not my interview, but if anybody's watching and they're younger, train as much and as hard as you possibly can now. Just trust all of us. Trust me. I wish I could train 2 4-hour sessions a day. it's not possible today with my body. It might be in 5 years, but it wouldn't be the kind of sessions I could do if I was 25. If you're 25 and
I just was going to say, it's interesting you say that because every one of us on this call, like if it's Chris Lamb, Mike Russell, Zephyrin, Justin Shea, you get a black eye, man, you live on that. You walk around and you're like, I got a black eye. And how did I get that black eye? I got punched in the face. And then when, you know, you're in your 40s and I don't know, like Sensei Suino's in his 60s, Hanshi Legacy's beyond that, he's into his 70s. They earned that. You know, that didn't come on the same way that it came on to other people. Didn't come on the same way, right? They earned that arthritis. They earned those bent bones. They earned the nose the way it's shaped. They earned the cracked ribs that they have. And every time you put your feet on the floor in the morning, that's your proof that you earned those things.
Absolutely.
So Sensei, we are actually kind of nearing our hour and a half. What do you want to chat about? What do you want to take us out on? What's most important to you to express to everybody tuning in right now? And what are you most excited about? Or what, you know, the big question people always ask is, what shifts have you seen since you started training that are better and worse? Let's start there maybe, if you don't mind. What do you see as better in 2020? And what do you see as having been lost since you started?
I think that one of the things, it's both a blessing and a curse at the same time, is watching the development of the business of martial arts. I think that in a lot of ways, the business of martial arts has watered down the lessons that we're trying to convey and the things that we're trying to do. But at the same time, you get really quality people who go into the business of martial arts, who do it well, and then can bring it to a larger audience. So to me, that's kind of the double-edged sword. We've got this ability to reach more people and do it in a very professional way. I was recently criticized on Facebook by somebody who said that my dojo is a business first. And at first I took huge offense to that, because it's like, no, I'm a martial artist first. And then my husband said, well, no, you're able to deliver the quality martial arts that you do because you treat your business like a business. And it was like, yes, I shouldn't be ashamed of the fact that I run a quality business, because I can now reach people with quality martial arts. So that the biggest change since I started is that I've seen the martial arts get really watered down in the chase after the dollar. But at the same time, you know, there are some amazing people out there who are treating it like a business. The one that jumps immediately to mind, who I believe is on the call, is Sensei Copeland. Like, there's a guy who is just mind-blowingly great at both the business side and the training side. Like, his students are just phenomenal. You know, and he's been an inspiration to me, certainly through my training. So yeah, that's the biggest change I've seen, and both the same answer: the business of karate, or the business of martial arts.
I love that you said that, because first off, in my own acting, that's something that a lot of young actors screw up, is that they don't get that it's show business, and they talk too much about their art. And your art will always be served if your show business is going well. But also, one of the things both my senseis, Legacy Dauphin, on the call taught me is that my goal is to do this as much as possible for as long as possible. And if you're an instructor and your business runs well, you're actually achieving your primary martial arts goal, which is to do it as much as possible for as long as possible. And I love when those things dovetail. It's really nice to hear you say that. You know, anybody want to chip in on that? Because I'm digging that.
Say those people that criticize you, fuck those people.
Yep.
They're not in there doing it. They have no idea, right? There's just too many. There's a lot of armchair critics.
Yeah. Hey, Sensei Suino, what's the return policy at JMAC?
Yeah. Now listen, this is copyrighted. You got to buy me beer if you want to use this. But JMAC, we'll give you double your ass kicking back if you're not satisfied.
I like it.
Before we do wind down, one thing I do want to ask you about is that, I was reading a lot about how you were talking about, wanting to take the back alley idea and put it into, you called it shopping centers, effective business. And obviously with the Olympics, and your involvement in tournament martial arts and karate getting into 2020, which is postponed now, but we'll call it 2020 for now. Talk about that. Like, talk about how important that was for you. And how do you feel about basically seeing what your concept was of a successful journey come to fruition?
That, I tell my competitors, this was when I was a young person, that was the goal. Every year that we were competing, the different karate organizations were in Canada and North America trying to get their shit together so that they could get into the Olympics. And of course, karate being as disorganized on an organizational level as it is, it became impossible. But that was always the goal. We're going for the Olympics, going for not this time, going for the Olympics. So the fact that this actually became a reality is, for the young me, if I could go back 25 years and tell young Adette, hey, this is going to be in the Olympics, I wouldn't have believed it. And so this is so exciting to me. And I hate that I am way too old to be in it. But just knowing that there's going to have, there are going to be kids that have that opportunity to be on the world stage and earn a medal, a karate Olympic medal, that is amazing to me. Like, that just, it legitimizes everything that we have done as far as being taken seriously as an athletic and artistic endeavor. It's pretty awesome.
I love that. And what do you think, aside from what you're talking about, because I hear that in the legitimization and the sheer podium of Olympics, that's the height of it. What do you think is the greatest benefit to the martial art itself? What do you think that striving toward the gold will do for the karate that'll benefit it over time?
It makes karate so it becomes, or it maintains its elite status, because not every, martial arts is such a small part of the athletic world, but it brings it to the forefront. It lets people see that it's not, as 12-year-old Adette would tell you, weird people running around making strange sounds in their pajamas. It really demonstrates that there is a quality to karate that is far more than what the media and film and TV has presented. It is something that is serious. It is something that is legitimate. You need to be athletic. It just heightens, it elevates it to a level that then opens it up to athletes who maybe wouldn't have considered martial arts as an option. And they see that young person out there on the Olympic stage, and they say, I could do that. I might not be able to play on a hockey team or a soccer team or run real fast, but I can do that. And so if it ignites that, and I think it will, I think once karate is out there, it is going to ignite an interest and light that spark. Like I had that first time I walked in. It's just gonna be like, wow, this is awesome. This is different. I think that's what the Olympics will do to karate.
I love that. I love the way you point, go, I can do that. That's what all of us have felt when we saw that thing that drew us in. Just quickly, Hanshi Montalvo wrote and said, talking about getting older and training, he recommends to wear protection now and to do the correct warm-ups. And Ryan Potter also messaged and just said, thanks for the kind words. He really appreciates it. So there you go. Sensei Suino, anything you want to say to take us out, to wind us down? This has flown by. Sensei Rice, I'm like, what the fuck? But we are there. So Sensei Suino?
Hey, we got to wrap it up. I'm so glad to meet you this way. And I know everybody else on the call is just, has probably learned as much as I have. Stick with us for these. We'd love to have you back sometime and continue this conversation, different topics, a new day, maybe post-COVID era. We can see how we all did.
Sensei Dauphin?
Yeah, I miss everybody on this call. I miss Adette a lot. I miss having lunch with her. I miss Sensei Legacy. I miss talking to him. I miss Sensei Suino. I miss everybody. I miss the routine. This is hard. Like, this is definitely, but this is good. Like, getting to do this is good. Like, so this wouldn't happen if you got to take the good with the bad. And so Adette, the one thing I would say to you is you definitely take the prize. Like, nobody has dropped off of this call. Everybody has stayed from the beginning to the end. You have more Hanchis on the call than anybody. Like, you have,
Freaks me right the fuck out. I can't.
yeah. Hanchi Legacy's on the call. Hanchi Montalvo's on the call. Hanchi Tarian's on the call. You got Sensei Copeland's on the call. You have multiple 8th dans, 9th dans, and 10th dans here listening to you. So I don't know, your future is bright or not based on
I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
I think it's very bright, and I'm super happy that you came on here. I know that it was uncomfortable for you, but I don't know. I'm really happy to talk to you, and I know that a lot of the things you said tonight, a lot of the people on the call, it's going to help a lot of people, the things that you said today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I hear that too. And also, I wish I could remember the MMA fighter who said this, but tough times don't last, tough people do. And I heard that. I'm sure he didn't make it up, or if he did, God bless. That's a killer thing. And I think that's what a lot of us are talking about. Hey, Hanchi Legacy, how are you? Just giving you a wave. Nice to see you. It's a real pleasure to have you here. Sensei Rice, this has been such a pleasure. I mean, I feel like I don't know you before this call, even though I would have said I do, just because I've seen you around so much. And I can't wait to come and be in your space again as well. This is
I look forward to it.
To the people watching, you know, I did say this a couple weeks ago after the Hanchi Legacy one, which is if you're from Legacy Shore and Rue, we have access to Hanchi Legacy. We have access to Sensei Suino, but some of these other dojos who we're going to be bringing in next week, Hanchi Montalvo, the week after John Tarian, these are where we're going to get the real gold, because I really loved hearing what you had to say tonight. Do you want to take us out, Sensei Rice? Anything you want to say?
You know, I was very nervous about this tonight. This did freak me out a little bit. Randy will tell you, we had a conversation last week, and I'm like, dude, you don't want to talk to me. But I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. You know, we're in it. This is so weird, like so weird. Just know, all of you guys, when I see you, I'm going to hug the shit out of you. I am a hugger, and I am missing that. I might punch you first, and I might punch you after too. Yeah, this has been hard, and I love that we have this because it keeps us connected to one another. So. You know, we are going to get through this. There is another side to this. I don't know how long it'll be, but we're going to get through this because we're all fighters. So I thank you very much for inviting me in on this. This was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to attend the other ones, to watch the other ones.
Thank you.
Not be on the hot seat.
Yeah, right on. You get to lay back. But like Sensei Suino said, I mean, we're so happy if our guests want to come back, because this is just flowing so nicely. Everybody who watched and who wrote in with your questions and who's going to recommend this to your friends on YouTube. And thank you for watching Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. And remember, we're still in the midst of this stuff that does have uncertainty. So please support your dojos. Please support your friends' dojos. Support the martial arts in general. A lot of these businesses require fees, in-person classes. Zoom classes aren't as appealing to newcomers, etc. So help out where you can, promote how you can. Most importantly, keep training. And I want to say thanks for tuning in. It means a lot to me. And I really do feel like the low man on the totem pole who's honored to get to host this. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon. And don't touch your face.